Big Mike here with
Hayes Entertainment.
Today's episode. We got Sami Joe Small, 3-time Olympian, 5-time world champion, and best Canada goalie ever played.
You like what we're doing? You hit the subscribe button. Shouts out to the sponsors. We got mugs. We got hoodies. Head on over to the store at IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
My name is Sami Joe Small. I'm a 3-time Olympian in the sport of ice hockey, 2 golds and a silver. And I will be the next guest on I Only Touch Greatness podcast.
This is the hottest place. Big name interviews in Vancouver with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
This is I Only Touch Greatness podcast with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
If anyone knows a good prospect, it's Vancouver's mini Don Cherry. Let's go crazy. He only touches greatness.
Ryan Hayes and Big Mike are taking over the podcast scene in Vancouver. Get down or lay down. Lay down. Lay down.
Hi, Sami. How's it going?
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. My name is Big Mike. I got a special guest with me today, Mini Don Cherry.
Nice.
Hey, how you doing?
Nice outfit.
Oh, thank you. It breaks the ice.
I like the blue that you have too.
Oh, thanks. My dog hates it.
Oh, I can imagine.
I'm Ryan, by the way. I was the one
I
talking
figured
to
you're Ryan. I didn't know Mike was going to be on, so I'm going to change my little sign.
Oh,
Right, to add Mike to it.
Thank
How are you
you.
guys doing today?
Good.
How are you?
Yourself?
Good, thank you. It's actually my daughter's birthday today.
I was just going to say thank you very much for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate it. We love watching you guys, and we've cheered you on forever.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
yeah, and sorry about last time. I had to bail on you because my tire blew on the highway. But
Of course, things like that happen. It's okay.
I know when I was rushing home and everything, right?
Well, especially with a podcast, it's nice that you guys can do it kind of whenever, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, most of the time we were together doing it on the same screen, but then COVID rules now we're not allowed to be hanging out at people's houses. So
Right. Where do you guys live?
Coquitlam, Vancouver, around there.
Okay.
Yeah. You were born in Winnipeg.
That's right.
What was childhood like for you growing up?
Are you starting now? Is this the start of the podcast?
That's the first question we can
All
get.
right. Well, childhood in Winnipeg was a lot of outdoor rinks, a lot of cold. But what I love about the city of Winnipeg is that people just do things outside because there's no other choice. I now live in Toronto, and in the winters, people tend to be closed inside, and nobody really knows how to deal with temperatures below zero. But in Winnipeg, that's what you do. You cross-country ski, or you play hockey, or you skate, or you go cross-country skiing. I already said that one. Downhill skiing, all these different things that you're just always doing. And I love the culture of being outside and that crisp air, as we'll say.
You finally got away from those big mosquitoes then.
Well, we have we tend to keep away the tourists. We call them birds in Winnipeg, but yeah, we have that, and then we have also, it gets really hot in the summer, up into the 40s, and then we have minus 40 in the winter. So I always say that Winnipeg is more about the people than maybe a tourist destination, but anybody that's from there knows the great qualities that it has to offer.
Okay.
Yeah,
What,
Milt Stiegel was telling us about the size of those mosquitoes
Oh, yeah.
out there.
And he's from the South too, isn't he? He's not from
no, he's from Cincinnati.
Yeah,
Cincinnati. Okay. So it's not like he's way in the South,
yeah,
but still nobody would be used to Winnipeg mosquitoes until you've seen them for
yeah.
sure.
No.
We call those hummingbirds in Vancouver.
Right.
What made you get into hockey in the first place? And did you play any other sports growing up?
So I certainly played a ton of sports. I had an older brother, and I think like most women of my generation, we tended to follow what our brothers were doing or our older siblings. And so he was playing street hockey. So I just kind of wanted to play street hockey with him and his friends, which is why I started playing. But we were not really a hockey family. So my parents didn't play. My brother and I started swimming when we were very young at the age of 5. And that was kind of our main sport within, I want to say, our family dynamics. My dad coached and my mom volunteered at the swim club. But we also were exposed to a ton of other sports. So growing up, we played soccer and baseball, sort of the regulars. And then once school sports started, we played volleyball and basketball and badminton, the things that were offered at the school. But then I also dabbled in sports like water polo and team handball and got exposed to the sport of track and field. So women's hockey was not an international sport when I was growing up. There was no national team. And so it was my dream to go to the Olympics, but never in a winter sport. And I really thought it would be in track and field. So I accepted a college scholarship down to Stanford to throw the discus and javelin. And that's what I thought my future would be. And I never dreamed it would be in hockey. But life has a way of working itself out, I suppose.
Everything happens for a reason.
I guess so. You're kind of ready for whatever happens. I don't know if I necessarily believe everything happens for a reason, because, I think it's easy for us in Canada to say that when life is pretty easy, but there's obviously places in the world that it's not. And I don't think that we are in a different position than people that go through dramatic situations are. So I don't want to think that things happen to those people for, bad things happen to people for reasons. I just think that, we're put in positions that we can be surrounded here in Canada by great people and have the opportunity to play all these different sports. And I know that, how privileged I am especially as a woman, in a large majority of the world, I would never be allowed to play these sports. I'd never be allowed to pursue sport at a high level. So I feel pretty fortunate to have been born in Canada and never take that for granted.
That's for sure. You see that like in many sports. I mean, wrestling for instance, can't go to Dubai and stuff, and because the women aren't allowed to wrestle in Dubai.
For sure. And this last Olympics, or this Olympics that's supposed to happen in Tokyo, women were going to canoe for the first time ever at the Olympics. Wow. Like there was no canoeing prior to this, which is just crazy. But yeah, even we see it even in women's hockey, that some of the women's hockey or men's hockey powerhouses are not very good in women's hockey because they don't treat women on the same stature there's no equality within their country. So as that starts to ramp up, women's hockey in those countries will grow. But countries that have predominantly treated women with respect, such as Japan, such as Sweden, such as Finland, those countries do very well in women's hockey comparatively to the men's game. Switzerland, even China, who puts a lot of money into women's sport, does better in women's hockey than they do in men's hockey. So it's interesting to see that.
I was going to say, I had this question later on, but what other country would you say is starting to compete with the Canada and the US?
So Finland and Sweden are definitely there. And at last year's World Championship, Finland beat Canada in the semis and then went on to beat the Americans in the final, or what I perceived to beat the Americans in the final, but the goal was disallowed and the Americans came back and won in a shootout. But so they've always been right there. Even when I played, we only ever beat them by a goal, sometimes in overtime. And in fact, at the 2002 Olympics that we went on to win the gold medal, we played Finland in the semifinal game and we're down 3-1 going into the third period. So it was very, very close. So Finland and Sweden have been there. Sweden has actually fallen off the map a little bit in terms of women's hockey. And what we see in both Finland and Sweden and the majority of countries is that there's kind of a crop of players that come through. And when they are coming through the junior team, that junior team is very good. And when they get to the senior team, they're very good. And then when they retire, the country kind of goes back to the beginning. So that's kind of what happened in Sweden. And Finland is just kind of ramping up with a new crop of really great players. But other countries that seem to have really put a lot of money into the game, the Czech Republic, Russia is starting to come along, but also countries like Japan, Slovakia has qualified for the World Championship level.
Yep.
South Korea, having hosted the Olympic Games, had put a ton of infrastructure into women's hockey and really promoted the game, and made the game acceptable for young girls to play. So I think a lot of these countries that now are starting to put money into the game, unfortunately, that a lot of it goes in development. So we'll see, they'll reap the rewards a decade from now when those players, have come through the system. But by no means do I think that Canada can rest on its laurels. I usually make a comment about the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver when Slovakia lost to Canada 14-0. But that Slovakian team that lost 14-0 could have beaten our 2002 Olympic gold medal winning team. So it just shows how much overall international women's hockey has improved, but also how the Americans and Canadians have to stay on top, that you can't continue to do what you've done to get there. You have to really take it to the next level. And it's amazing to see now when I watch the girls play, just the incredible skill, but also their dedication to their craft that they've had for an entire career. Most of us of my generation became professional athletes and then learned how to train. These guys have learned how to train and be pros since the age of 5, 6, 7, along with their male peers. So that's the big difference. These guys have been going to camps, doing individual skills, and working on their mental game since they've been young kids. So I'm excited to see how they can take the game to the next level. And just the skills that these girls have is pretty phenomenal.
And I know you got the new book. We're going to touch on that coming up here in a few minutes. But
this is pretty much what the book is about. So don't worry, I've been touching on it the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Okay, great. Perfect. Also, you was an original founder of the CWHL. What happened there?
It's a really big question.
I'm trying to get you to talk here.
Yeah. So what happened there? To tell your audience, in 2000 and I guess it would have been the end of the 2018 season, the board of directors decided that the league was no longer sustainable and basically ceased operations. So I think, having started the league, it was really hard for me. I sat on the board for the first 4 years and then essentially just fundraised and then became just a player, which is ultimately what I wanted to do, was just to become basically a professional hockey player, which I was able to do. And in my final season, after basically being relegated to the third goalie position, I became the general manager the following season. So accepted that job, was really excited to move forward. The league was growing. We were doing some great things within the league. So when we heard the news that the league was no longer continuing, it was really hard. We started in 2007 with a total budget of $360,000 for the entire league. And we finished with a budget of $3.7 million for the entire league. So we really built it up to the point where we could pay the players for the first time, where the coaches and staff and administrators were paid. And I think, had the real good bones to be able to move forward as a sustainable league. But I think that what people misconstrue is the league failure being a women's hockey failure, which it was not. It was simply a business failure. It was, in my opinion, had a board of directors that wasn't willing to put the work and effort into taking it to the next level, and felt like they wanted a different model moving forward. And I think if I was on the board, what I would have done is to transition into that model within the same league and not just kibosh the whole thing. I think that's what the hardest thing was, is that when the league went down, there was nothing else in its place. And we all thought that was, that they were just they had something ready for us, but they didn't. They just kind of said this wasn't the way forward. So from that, we've seen the NWHL, which is a league mostly in the States, now has expanded to Canada. They actually started in about 2011, having first come to the CWHL to put a team in our league. And we basically said to them that you have to go and raise the money to be able to come into the league. You can't just kind of take money from the league. And they went away and started a whole league. So all the power to them. I mean, it was a thorn in our side for a long time in the CWHL as they took players from our league and vice versa. But I think it really pushed us to be better. It pushed us to get to that next level. What they did great was they paid players for the first time. They had an incredible online presence. They did great with marketing. And so while we had the stronger players within the league, we really had to look to them for a lot of, ways to improve our league as well. So I think that both of them kind of played off each other. And now they're the only ones left. The players that used to play in the CWHL have formed an association called the Pro Women's Hockey Players Association and are essentially waiting for the NHL to take over and to start a women's league under their umbrella. And the NWHL has said, no, we don't want that model moving forward. We're going to continue, until there is something, then we'll stop. And who knows when there will be something. It could be next year. It could be 4 years from now. Gary Bettman has not really indicated which direction that they're going in. And so I feel for the players. I'm grateful that I'm not a player right now because it would be incredibly hard to make those tough decisions. And there's sort of a line and you're on one side or the other. And I just hate that women's hockey is fractured in that way. You just hate to see it, but hopefully whatever comes at the end will be something really great that we'll have built on both leagues. And there's some great minds working on it that hopefully have the best interest of the game in their mind when they create this new professional league that hopefully happens sooner rather than later.
And that's for sure. Having this NHL type league will definitely help benefit the ladies going forward. And it also gives stability. And you've seen it in the All-Star game as they're starting to put their foot in the door. The ladies, getting a chance to play in the NHL All-Star game and all this. There's only a matter of time before there's a whole league for you, I would think.
Well, that's the thing is there is currently a league. And that's, I think, what the misconception is that, the players can play in this other league. They're just choosing not to. So there's kind of two schools of thought. One is to build from within and try to continue to work hard and, get more money and build it to the next level. And the other one is to just kind of wait around for somebody to come in and help you. And, I don't know because you're right. Being under the NHL umbrella would be incredibly powerful for women's hockey. You would have a whole marketing machine behind you. It would be awesome. And if Gary Bettman said today that's what the future was, I would get right behind that for sure. It just is a little daunting when he has made no indication presently that that's what's going to happen even 2-3 years down the road. So as a fan now, I wish that the NHL would come out and give their sort of long-term strategic plan for women's hockey, because all they've said right now is we have no plans to do anything. And I don't know if that's really what's going on behind closed doors, but as a fan, that's all I see. So it's hard to then, support the one side that you're sitting out and you're waiting, but how long are they waiting for? And the push to the NHL, how much do you push? Is it a good business plan for Gary Bettman to add women's hockey to their docket? I certainly think so, but with the pandemic having obviously obliterated a lot of the NHL franchises, how much further does that set back that plan? I don't know. So the NWHL is just kind of plowing ahead. But what the NWHL does not have is these top players. So they have the next best players, which are still very good. Basically, it would be players that play D1 hockey, top line, that are just on the cusp of making the national team. So it's not to say that they're not good players. They just are not the big names that we're using in women's hockey. So I think they need the big names, and hopefully there can be some sort of compromise so that, until there is something they can play in this league. I don't know, but it just, I just feel for them in this moment is hard.
As a fan of hockey, I would obviously love that to happen. That'd be awesome. More things to watch. We never get to watch you guys unless it's the Olympics, basically.
I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love it too. And we in women's hockey would, of course, love it. So just a matter of when. And I don't have any reservations that the next generation of girls will have something really great. But I feel for this generation of girls that are coming out of college right now. And, you know, those in the book, I talk a lot about those stories about playing your club team hockey and how those are the people you're playing a 40, 50 game schedule with, that you're on the long bus trips with, that you're traveling across the country. Those are the girls you really get to know. With the national team in a non-Olympic year, we're only together a couple weeks. So, I feel for the girls right now that don't have the opportunity to be down by a goal and have to win, or be vying for a championship or be able to drink out of the cup. But there's all these things that they're missing out on for the betterment of the game. And I get it that they're trying to help that next generation, but so much of it brought me such joy. I just wish that they could have that opportunity too.
That's kind of COVID hit at the same time, right?
Right.
One superstar we had on was Sarah Nurse, obviously, who you drafted second overall as a GM. I know it'd be nice to see her play. I mean, we only got to see a short little small stint of her, and she's an incredible player.
She for sure is. I mean, she really was amazing to have on our Toronto Furies team. And, the first year out of college is always hard for most people because suddenly you now only have hockey. These girls have gone from being full-time students, full-time hockey players, surrounded by all their friends. They move to a new city, and suddenly hockey is what you have. And, Sarah's in a little bit different position, and at least she's from this area. She was from Toronto. A lot of the players I drafted were not even from Toronto, so you're in a new city. But what I found really remarkable about Sarah's progress was how quickly she just kind of put herself into being a CWHL player. And part of that is she had already played on the Olympic team and been on the national team, so she knew what it was like to be a professional hockey player. And she took it seriously. And that's hard because a lot of your life changes in that year. And so who knows what she could have done in her second, third, fourth year with the Toronto Furies. But I felt like we were just starting to click. We had a really young team. We had 14 rookies on the team the year that the league stopped running. And we really didn't get our stride till after Christmas when Sarah Nurse, Natalie Spooner, those guys just really started to click together and put the puck in the net. And they were just really a joy to watch. They were so much fun. And we just started to build a fan base where we're averaging over 500 people a game, which might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot for us. And it was really starting to get some excitement around it. And I think that's the hardest thing for me is I really liked the people that we had. I liked the team. I liked the coaching staff and the bigger staff around the team. Everybody just kind of seemed to work together. And we're all pretty new, kind of going through this new experience together. So it is a tragedy that we can no longer pursue that. But, it's been nice to see that Sarah has really picked up the torch and been a spokeswoman for many different topics, obviously, when it comes to, changing the culture of hockey. I've been very impressed with her honesty and her want to stand out too. It's not easy to be the only one at times. And I'm sure that it's not easy for her to go through all of that, but she's taken it on and really taken it on her shoulders. And that's been really great to see her development and her maturity in those situations. And I'm excited to see what her future holds because not only is she a great player, but she's a great person as well.
In your book, you talk of the role I played, plug. You talk about the Olympics in 1998 in Nagano. Can you tell us about your first experience at the Olympics? Because you obviously were on the 2002 team, which is, I think, the greatest team of all time. But you earlier referenced the 2010 team as being a great team. So is there one that can you just talk about your Olympic experience?
For sure. Yeah. So the 98 team, I think was really special for all of us that got to play in the 98 Olympics because it was the first. It was the first time women's hockey was in the Olympic Games. And when you take a look at our Team Canada at the time, it was, we had some rookies on the team, but the majority of these girls that were on the team were girls that had fought for this right to play in the Olympic Games, that had stuck around in women's hockey at a time that was incredibly challenging, had been the first often in either their family or their community or their province to really even play the game of hockey, often playing alongside boys. So we had some incredible women on that team that were just such great role models to us younger generation, that really taught us the value of giving back to the game, of being mentors, and of leaving the game better off than when you got there. And they always pushed for more, always pushed for quality. And so to be a part of those very first Olympic Games was really special. Obviously, we did not win. We came away with a silver medal. So, often that is what is left in the mouths of Canadians when they think about that team. But the reality was that particular team, I think, really changed women's hockey for the better in this country. It growth after the Nagano Olympics in girls coming into the game was huge, because now suddenly there's a future for girls in the game. However, Nagano was also played in the middle of the night, so 3:00 in the morning, most of the games were played. And so not too many people were able to watch us, except for real hockey fans. I mean, of course, real hockey fans tuned in and were able to follow along with us. However, it was really the 2002 Olympic Games where that was the first time a lot of people saw women's hockey at that level. And it was played in prime time, so that really helped. The fact that we had this rivalry with the US really helped. And the fact that the final game was so close, obviously with a ton of penalties being called, but I think that the fact that final game was so exciting just made women's hockey become acceptable in this country. It made dads want to put their daughters into it. It made moms think, well, maybe my daughter can do this too. And so I think that was special for whole other reasons, is that we suddenly made hockey mainstream for women in this country. So that was really fun to be a part of. The Torino team in 2006 was perhaps the most skilled team I've ever been a part of. We just steamrolled over the competition, played Sweden in the final game in 2006. But because the men didn't win in Torino, we weren't really able to ride their coattails like we were after 2002 when we both won. So not too many people know too much about the 2006 team, despite the fact that we were dominant on the world stage more than we had ever been in 2002. And then 2010, I actually didn't play at the Olympics. I was cut right before the Olympic Games. And I did go out and watch some of the Olympics, and my husband competed in the Paralympics in the sport of sledge hockey. So I was out to watch him out there. And I think what I most take away from those Olympics is that for me, my entire life have been defined by the Olympic Games. I've been so mesmerized by the ideals of the Olympic Games. And working as a professional speaker, I often, prior to the 2010 Olympic Games, had to explain just how monumentous the Olympics can be, how powerful it can be for our country. After Vancouver, I didn't have to do that, because I think people really understood. They understood just what the Olympic Games could mean, not only to the athletes, but to the fans and to an entire nation. So that was really special to be a part of and get wrapped up in. And I was really proud of how Vancouverites and Canadians in general got behind the Paralympic Games, because up until that moment, really, they had not seen that type of support. But the crowds just went to watch all the Paralympic sports in droves and supported all the athletes. And that was really phenomenal to see. So I was really proud of our country on a world stage to show that we have equality when it comes to disabled people within our country. And it really showed them and the rest of the world just how much we value that.
2010 was great for everybody, that's for sure.
Oh, I had probably the best time of my life going downtown and going up to Whistler. And
at least you remember those 2 weeks. Some people don't even remember their 2 weeks.
Hey,
true.
That could be true. There was one of the best 2-week stints I've ever had, besides, of course, Mexico's or Hawaii. But how did that Haley speech get the team motivated? Well, the flag, right?
Oh, so Haley's speech was in fact not. That was to your cohort, Don Cherry. But so she never gave the speech. So how it happened was in the 2002 Olympic Games was between the second and third period, we had just gone up by a goal. Jana Hefford had just scored this amazing breakaway goal to take us to 3-1 in the gold medal game. And so in the dressing room between the periods, Cassie Campbell, who is she's emotional at the best of times, stood up on the bench, and, she's just like fired up. And she was always such a motivational leader for all of us. And she told the story about how the Americans had our flag on their floor. And every time that they walked to the rink, they walked across the flag. And that, she just told it with such passion, and we should be so angry and we have to go out and show them. And so we did. We went out for the third period and we won the third period. However, as soon as it happened, Hayley Wickenheiser found Don Cherry steaming, foaming from her mouth, still so passionate. I mean, Hayley is just like so focused. She finds Don and just tells the story. The Americans had our flag on the floor and we want to know if they want us to sign it. And so right now, goes crazy and immediately goes over to the Americans and is like, why would you have their flag on their floor? And the American girls were like, what are you talking about? And they had no idea. And so did it happen? Who knows? Did it motivate us? It certainly did. Do I think it could have happened? I think every team, and probably you guys too, whatever team you play for, always has guys on the team that would do something like that.
Of course.
But most teams have people in leadership positions that don't allow things like that to happen. And they had people like Cami Granado, Karen Bai, who had been around for a long time, who I have just the utmost respect for. And I just cannot imagine that they would have allowed that to happen. It was also the year of the World Trade Center, and one of the American girls actually lost her father in the World Trade Center. And so some of the other girls had carried that tattered flag into the opening ceremonies. So they understood the value of the flag. And I just don't think that they would have publicly done it. That's not to say that there isn't somebody on every team that would do crappy things like that. But I think somebody would have put a kibosh to it at some point. Regardless, Cassie said it helped us win. And I just don't think it was ever meant to be public knowledge until Hayley found Don Cherry. And then all of a sudden, everybody knows.
Don Cherry likes opening his mouth about anything. So,
Hayley was certainly fired up.
She definitely found the right person. That's for sure.
What was it like playing with the GOAT, obviously, Hayley Wickenheiser? And what was it like playing with her?
Yeah, it was, obviously she's an incredibly skilled player, but she was super intense. She was, I'm a goaltender, so for me, it was great playing against her and getting to practice with her. But teammates often found it hard because she was so hard on herself. She wanted the best out of herself every single game. She wasn't really much of a talker. And even in the dressing room, she was pretty quiet and just like focused and, yelling at herself all the time. She's a different person away from the rink. She's not that intense and that just like, just so even in training sessions, it was like you drew the short straw and you had to train with Wick. It's like you just knew you're going to get yelled at or something was going to happen. But that's what made her such an incredible player. And in the end, I think a team takes a bunch of different types of personalities to be able to make it strong. And what we were fortunate to have was a leadership crew that included Wick was an assistant captain, Hayley Wickenheiser, Cassie Campbell, who was that inspirational, motivational, tear in your eye kind of leader. And then we had Vicky Sanahara, who was sort of somewhere in the middle, keeping the glue all together. So I really credit Vicky for being, the other two were incredible leaders too, but really the unsung hero of that leadership core, because she kind of kept all the pieces together. And you need people like Hayley who are going to push your training to a max every single day. She's going to be calling you out. She's going to be pushing you to be better. And then you have somebody like Cassie who's going to be patting you on the back, telling you you're doing a great job. It's amazing. And sort of that inspiring. And then you have somebody like Vicky right in the middle who is keeping them from exploding and keeping them from these huge fights, but then, kind of keeping the peace the whole time. So between the three of them, I think that that's what made us so strong throughout that decade that I played. was that we had this kind of leadership core of very, very different people, but who just worked tirelessly together for the betterment of the team, which was amazing to see.
What's opening and closing ceremonies like?
It is everything you could imagine it could be. It is, I'm sure you guys have watched on TV, or maybe you guys were at the ones in Vancouver. Were you guys at the ones in Vancouver?
Not the opening or closing, but I went to a few things there, but
you've watched it on TV.
Yeah,
Yes.
It is everything you can imagine on TV and more. It is, it's certainly it's a long day of hurry up and waiting. There's a lot of hurry up, you wait, you hurry up and wait. But what I found so special about the opening and closing ceremonies is that there's no pressure. There's no, you can't do anything wrong. It's not like a game where you're visualizing and you're focusing and you're kind of in the moment and you're playing and that you're up and you're down. The opening ceremonies is just for everybody to enjoy. It just is a spectacle. It's really a chance for you to think about the people that helped you get there, your friends, your family. It can be very emotional because you actually have a moment to think about this. Whereas once the Olympics start, you don't really have a moment. You're training, you're resting, you're getting ready for the game. Your days are all filled up. So every 5 minutes is kind of filled up with something that you're supposed to be doing. But at the opening, you just get to be, which was amazing. And to get to go through it with teammates, people in individual sports don't often get that. You've got to the Olympics and maybe your personal coach might be there, but they don't get to walk in the ceremony. So you're there with essentially your teammates from your country, but they are also your competitors. So it's a little bit different. Whereas we just got to enjoy the moment together. So that was really special. When I look back on my Olympic experiences, I think that those are the things that stick out the most for me, are the opening and closing ceremonies, for simply the sheer joy of them. It's so different than playing, because you actually get to have a moment to stop and think about your life within sport and the people that have had these amazing influences on you. And we don't often get a moment like that. So they're pretty special for that reason.
Do you have a favorite sports movie?
Oh, good question.
Switch it up, throw that one in.
Favorite sports movie. I don't know if this counts as a sports movie, but I really like the Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Okay.
Which is about chess. So, it's kind of sports. It's like the Queen's Gambit right now. I don't know if you guys have watched it on Netflix.
No.
It was
The wife's watching it right now. She loves it.
You might think that it's about chess, but it's not really. It's about, it's like any other sports movie to me. It's kind of the same. I love Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like the chess version of that. So yeah, for sure, you guys need to watch it. That would probably be my all-time favorite one. I love all the inspirational kind of Disney type movies, Remembering the Titans and all that kind of stuff. I really loved there's 2 Steve Prefontaine movies. I'm big into documentaries. So these ones were Disney type movies, but I'm big into documentaries. So the most recent Chicago Bulls documentary on Netflix was amazing. I love all that kind of inside each team and how they kind of work. And so I would say documentaries are kind of more my genre than actual movies. But what's your favorite movies?
Well, I go Shawshank Redemption, Mighty Ducks number 2.
Sports movies.
Mighty Ducks number 2.
Okay, number 2.
I definitely have to go Remember the Titans. There.
Mike, you Remember the Titans?
Yes, absolutely. I love that movie since I was a kid. So yeah.
Sometimes it's the ones that we remember with fun. I used to love Slapshot. I loved it. And we used to watch it on bus trips all the time when I was growing up. And I recently watched it and I was like, ooh, it may be very misogynistic, very racist, like all these things that you're like, oh, maybe this is not exactly the way I remembered it. You remember it with such endearing qualities, but it's not really endearing.
Rudy's actually my favorite sports movie.
Oh, Rudy's a good one. Yeah.
So Sami, let's talk about your book. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'd love to read it. Where can we find it? And let's talk about it.
For sure. So basically it's my decade on the national team. So it's all the stuff we've talked about. So if you're any kind of hockey fan or really sports fan in general, I think this book is for you. I wrote it from the first person vantage point. So I really wanted to bring the reader into the story with me as if they were living it with me. So that's what I try to do throughout the book. So hopefully for that reason, it is more entertaining than perhaps message evoking. I didn't want to pass judgment on any situation that I went through because I wanted the reader to feel themselves in moments that they happened in their lives. So, perhaps I might not have played in a game and I was upset I wasn't playing in a game, but they can think, in their workplace environment where maybe they, or in their family environment where they were not put in a role they wanted to be in and what emotions that evoked. So that's the style that I tried to write it with, but it is available at pretty much every bookstore across the country, which is amazing to see, to walk into a bookstore and your book be on the shelf. Like that's a really surreal experience for me. And also available online wherever you purchase your books. So all the big stores and all the mom and pop small independent booksellers also have them as well. So yeah, it's been quite a ride. It published September 29th. And it's kind of weird to call myself a published author now, but yeah, next steps, I guess.
And Olympic champion as well.
That too. Yeah.
I got one more question, maybe. What was your dream venue that you ever played in, or the favorite venue you ever played in?
I think the World Championships in 2007 were in Winnipeg. And, I never got a chance to ever play internationally in Winnipeg. So to be a part of that championship was pretty special. But it wasn't the old Winnipeg Arena, which is what I grew up going to Jets games at. It was the new MTF Center. So that was a little bit different. I would say the best venue that I played at around the world, there's a Globe Arena that in Sweden that I think it's AIK plays at. One of the top Swedish team plays at. And it is actually in the shape of a globe. It's really cool. It almost looks like the Epcot Center. And what was really neat about that venue was the day before the game, we got to go on a tour of the venue. So all the way up into the rafters and walk across and all that kind of stuff. So that was really special. But I would say any of the big NHL rinks are always pretty awesome. Just for the sheer fact that they can pack these stadiums and have, 17,000 people yelling for women's hockey is pretty amazing. But I think, I go back to my roots, and playing outdoors is always really amazing to me. And it could just be playing shinny on my local rink. I love that outdoor feel of ice crackling under your feet. And I now live in Mississauga, just outside of Toronto. We don't really get that opportunity here. So every time I go back to Winnipeg for Christmas, I drag my husband out to the outdoor rinks in -30 and make him skate for 2 hours while our eyelids freeze shut. But I still just love that moment probably more than anything else.
Cool. Do you still throw on the goalie gear ever?
So I played professionally up until the 2017 season, and then became a general manager in 2018. And didn't actually think about it right away because I was so busy becoming a GM and managing a team. However, throughout that season was asked to play in sort of charity games. And so around here, there's a bunch of charity games that you're asked to play as a goaltender. But I have now started to play in a women's rec league as a defenseman / forward. And that's been really fun because it's like a brand new sport for me. Yeah. So when I go to play rec hockey as a goalie, it's really hard. It's really hard to not mentally be disappointed in myself because you still let goals in. The play is not the same speed as it was. And it's always ricochets or a screenshot or something. So either you're playing with women that were not at the same level as you, or you're playing with guys who think they should be scoring on you. You're just never you're in a no-win situation all the time as a goaltender. However, when I play as a forward or defenseman, it's like brand new going to play soccer or something. So my expectations of myself are very minimal. I'm terrible, and I'm fine with that. So it's been really a lot of fun. And I've made this whole new network of friends within women's hockey that most of these women didn't get a chance to play like me growing up. they didn't have that opportunity. So they've come back into the game at a later stage. And that's been really fun to see too. So many women now across the country, having started over the age of 30, which is awesome to see.
Did you have any pregame meals or rituals?
I didn't really. I was never into developing any superstitions, and anytime that a ritual kind of became too close to a superstition, I kind of stopped it. So I always felt that within the game of, whether it's college hockey or professional hockey, there's always things that can go wrong. Your bus can break down. You could be late for a game. You could be too early for a game. And I never wanted to get myself in a position where I had to do something, or I had to eat something, or I had to, or I felt like, then my whole game is going to be messed up. So I would say for the most part, I was pretty lackadaisical when I got to the rink. I was chatting with my teammates, and I tried to have routines when it came to warm-ups so that I would finish things in time. But if certain things didn't happen, it wasn't a big deal. And I by no means had to put on my left skate before my right skate or do anything like that.
We hear a lot of that. We hear a lot of those ones, a bunch of weird ones.
Yeah,
And usually
I would say the only real sort of routine-ish thing that I have is after I get scored on, I have sort of a little stick tap that I do and kind of refocus so that I'm like looking at the next puck and trying to, think about the goal for a second, allow myself to have that moment of, either that was a good goal or that was a terrible goal. I should have done this, but then refocusing on the next puck so that I'm not, you can spiral downward pretty quickly as a goalie if you're too focused on letting in a bad goal. So that would be my only real routine is from a mental performance side of how to refocus after letting in a goal. But yeah, other than that, I would say I was, pretty lackadaisical when it came to anything like that.
Usually it's the goalies that got all the crazy ones.
I know. That's why maybe I missed out on being too crazy as a goalie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I got one last question. I might butcher the name here, but Manon Riom, did she influence your career at all? Did she influence your career at all?
Mm-hmm. She certainly did. You'll have to read about that in the book. So when I was about 14, 15 years of age is when she played her game with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And that was really the first time I'd ever seen a woman. I'd never seen a woman playing hockey prior to that. So for her to, be on that stage and for it to be so much attention around it was pretty amazing, because for a lot of us across the country, that was a real galvanizing moment for a lot of us, realizing that, wow, there's other girls that play this sport. And that was really neat. I got to do an interview with her when I was 15. I went to French immersion school, so I was on a French radio station where they called her and myself in at the same time. And that was really special. And she was just so genuinely interested in my career. And she not only taught me that women can play at that level, but how to be a role model and how to influence that next generation behind you, because she was essentially almost a decade older than me. However, she treated me with respect and really kindness and encouragement. I got to play with her at the 98 Olympics, so we became teammates, and I was in awe of her before I stepped on the ice. But once you're around Manon, she really brings you into her world and makes it just seem normal. And so I'm really privileged to be able to say that she is a good friend of mine now. But I certainly was in awe of her growing up, and what she accomplished was huge for us on so many levels within the game. And often, she's remembered for having played that one game with Tampa Bay, but she was also the starting goaltender at the Olympics in women's hockey. And that's, for us within the game, that's even bigger. She won a world championship. She was cut in 97, the year right before the Olympics, and came back to earn a spot on the Olympic team. And that was, I think, to me, even more incredible than what she did in the NHL world, was that, she had to convince the same coach that she could be on the team. And she did. She went back and trained even harder and proved that she could be the number one goaltender. So that was pretty amazing to see.
Yeah.
Hey, Sammy Joe, thank you so much for taking the time for us today. We really appreciate it. And we've been a big fan of yours forever, obviously watching you during the Olympics and cheering you on. And we can't thank you enough.
Yeah,
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. On my daughter's birthday, this was a nice way to spend an hour with you guys on a podcast.